Hey folks, Regis here from the road. You'll see I'm in a hotel room right now. You probably noticed the audio quality significantly worse, camera's worse, but big update today. I had to talk about it. This video is later than normal, but that's because I was at a very important top secret event today. I can't talk about that a lot, but we'll know more about it eventually. That said, the 23 wild cards here finally officially announced as a part of the Doom in the Tomb event, along with a lot of other cool tavern brawls and quests and rewards and awesome stuff. Sounds like it's going to be a great event, dual class arena as well. But this video, I mostly wanted to talk about the wild cards returning to standard and the impact they're going to have on the Hearthstone meta. Now, for some details on these cards, everybody gets them for free. They are temporary in your collection, so you'll have fun with them for a couple months. They go back out uh, basically at the patch for the next Hearthstone expansion, so maybe like early December, late November, these will rotate back out. There may be an official date. You can find that somewhere else if you look closely. But here's the list, and we're going to run through these one by one. But as you'll see, some very amazing cards in here, and some that will inevitably have big impacts on Hearthstone. So I thought we would talk through each of these and how I think they're going to impact the game. Some in enormous ways, others perhaps not much at all. So I thought we'd start with the neutral cards instead of running through all the class cards first. That means we look at N'Zoth up first. N'Zoth, the card that was pretty good in standard format in his day and still good in wild format today, which is a good indication for the raw power level, even competing against the biggest, best stuff out there. N'Zoth is pretty nuts. That said, some of the most powerful N'Zoth synergy stuff are things like Blood Reaver Gul'dan, which we don't have things like Void Lords or Gul'dan multiple summons. So I don't know, there's quite as much raw power in standard format for N'Zoth, but that said, it doesn't have to be as powerful because standard format is weaker than wild. And there are certainly some good death rattle cards, including Sylvanas also coming back. That alone almost enough to power N'Zoth, but also we've got things like Kartat Defender now, which is kind of like the new Sludge Belcher in a lot of ways. Big time healing, big time defense, coming back off of N'Zoth. Not to mention, one Kartat Defender actually procs twice as a Death Rattle minion, because each half dying is its own Death Rattle minion, which means N'Zoth, with just one Kartat dying, brings back two Kartat Defenders, which is pretty insane. So even like Highlander style decks could utilize this quite successfully, and obviously there are tons of other great Death Rattles. So N'Zoth probably going to make it into some control deck. Things like Reborn Paladin are probably already crazy for it. All kinds of Highlander decks might be able to toss this in as a late game option. Clearly a card that's going to see play. It's going to be part of a big deck. No doubt there for me on this one. That said, Sylvanas, kind of a similar story. Going to go in that same N'Zoth deck almost inevitably, but Sylvanas has a lot of cool opportunities. Things like resurrecting her in Priest could be insane. Giving her Reborn is nuts. Tossing her into a Highlander deck is just a good 6-drop. That's great. She's proven that she can do that. She was one of the most played cards ever in Hearthstone in her era. She's still played in Wild to an extent. I think Sylvanas has a lot of potential to be a very relevant, if not meta-defining, probably. I don't think she'll like shape decks around her necessarily, but will certainly be included in a handful of different decks that can play anywhere towards the mid or late game. Next up, we have Ragnar Rose. Again, kind of the same story for Sylvanas. Obviously, they both rotated out into the Hall of Fame because they're just both so darn good. And they were played by everybody. I think that will remain true with Rag. He doesn't have quite as many synergies as a card like Sylvanas, but again, in Highlander decks that are like mid-game body oriented, they need those big 5, 6, 7, 8-drop turns. Ragnar Rose is perfect. Great way to pump out damage, pressure, difficult minion for opponents to deal with. We've seen cards like Octosari being run in these decks, which are great for reloading your hand, undeniably. Ragnar Rose does not make that up, but he's perhaps just a good enough, better minion that you don't need to reload your hand. Maybe you just win the game. So we'll see which direction these sorts of decks go. I think Ragnar Rose is such a good card. He will inevitably, once again, be played. Moving on here, we have the Curator. Fun little card, like the Countess Ashmore that actually made it into a good deck. He is got taunt by default, which helps, gives you more time to play him, and he's drawing you a bunch of resources. Now the question right now is, who's going to run a beast a dragon, and a Murloc. Not all decks are going to be able to do that successfully, but once again, I think Highlander decks could squeeze those things in. Right now, Murloc is the hardest for most decks to get, but you could just toss in a Mermy, and it's like, okay, you've got a good one-drop. Mermy satisfies that condition. So even that's not that hard, but even if it just draws 2, that's not bad. Now, what are the Beast and Dragon? It's a little tough to say. It depends on the class, probably. I'm hoping we'll get more dragons in a future expansion. It is the year of the dragons, for heaven's sake. So maybe we'll get some good dragons in the future. But that said, Curator won't be around for that, so that doesn't even matter. So it's got to be some dragon that's in there right now. Twilight Drakes are a possibility. Azure Drake's not coming back, so that won't be it, which is one of the classic ones. But there are classes that certainly have dragons that are good. So we'll see if the Curator gets there. I mean, it's just a body. It's a taunt. Decks like those. It draws you a couple things. That's good. So I'm sure it'll find some deck that it makes sense in. I don't think it'll be a huge engine. If there's some deck I'm not thinking of that runs all of these things already, very obviously, that could utilize this type of minion, leave that in the comments below. I've had a very long day, so I'm not thinking very clearly. But let me know if there's something good. And then finally, Emperor Thorson. I mean, this card is insane. It enables so many possibilities, crazy combos, OTKs, shenanigans that wouldn't otherwise be possible. It is going to be good. There will be some crazy deck created from this that will be overpowered, probably, that will feel nuts. We never expect it. Who knows what it's going to be? I can already envision like some damage combos with like Leroy, double Bloodsworn Mercenary with an Inner Rage, right? We already see that with one Leroy Bloodsworn, but if you discount some of that stuff, it's like, oh, that's 30 damage with just a few cards, right? Even like in Priest, we've seen that Leroy Embalming Ritual Wretched Reclaimer combo. Same story. That could be crazy when you get all 3. Those are just a couple examples that become absurdly high damage combos. And I thought for like 2 seconds about it. Smarter people who spend a lot more time thinking about it are going to find something busted to do with this card. Even if it's not like a crazy OTK combo, still just a good general card. Pays off for itself. Insane threat. Imagine this in a Reborn Paladin, copying it, getting 2 of these, discounting your hand by that much, although that deck doesn't usually have a lot of cards in hand. But you get the idea. This one is going to be enormously important in the meta. A+ card. So, moving on over to the class cards instead here. Up first, we start with Druid and Astral Communion. I just don't think this one's going to see much play. I think it's super fun, but it's more of a meme. I don't know if any decks get opened up because of this right now. Even with Kuhn to pair it with here on its own, Astral Communion, probably just going to be for fun more than anything else. I don't think ramping to a ton of mana early right now has the payoff necessary to make it good. That said, Kuhn is pretty nuts with the Druid Quest, where both of his choose ones activate. So he basically late in the game, which, by the way, Quest Druid typically gets to quite successfully, he's going to suddenly just be a free. You'll be able to play him for free because you get your mana crystals back. 7/7 that gives you 10 armor. And that deck already has a lot of stabilization in late game. I think Kuhn fits in perfectly. He's almost in a way kind of like a super Anubis defender. Like they play that taunt body for free after casting a big spell. Kuhn doesn't have that condition. You can play him as long as you have 10 mana. He gives you not a taunt body, but a big body and some defense via armor. So operates in the same direction, like a free way to get stuff, but he's just like even better and crazy. So unless he somehow doesn't outcompete another card, I just can't imagine how this card doesn't get played. Moving on to Mage, we have the Babbling Book here. Great opening card for a deck that's looking to generate some good Mage spells. And it's proven to be a fine one-drop in that sort of environment if you need some random stuff, which a deck that runs Flamewaker, for instance, might want. Because Flamewaker was absolutely crazy dominant and still remains relevant in wild format as well, although not as much in the Secret Mage era of today. There have been a handful of Tempo Mage decks, most recently Quest Mage in wild, that use Flamewaker quite successfully. And because we have cards like Mana Cyclone and Sorcerer's Apprentice and tons of cheap spells like Ray of Frost, and that's a lot of spells by itself in Standard right now, I think this could be the new engine for a very good tempo mage deck. They have like everything they need to generate spells, but also then pay off those spells as well now with Flamewaker. So I don't know if Babbling Book will make the cut in that deck, but certainly Flamewaker could empower a totally new way to play mage. And then we have Mysterious Challenger. I think everybody remembers this card from TGT. If you played back then, led a dominant Secret Paladin deck, one of the craziest, highest win rate decks I can remember in a long time in the history of Hearthstone. And it's because it thinned out your deck so well, just dumped a ton of stuff onto the board, and it was powered by its brother Avenge, one of the best secrets, maybe the best secret Paladin has ever had. So bringing both of these back seems like a pretty cool pair, particularly with a lot of secret Paladin stuff that's been lingering, like Commander Risa, Mysterious Blade, Sunreaver Spy. That's a package that had some signs of success very early in Rise of Shadows, but fell off pretty quickly. But now with a new way to power it, I'm wondering if that deck gets there on this big old turn 6, along with the early aggression that's possible to those other cards. Even if it doesn't, I can almost envision both of these cards actually just making it into like an aggressive Highlander Paladin deck, something that's working right now. And you can put a few secrets in there, maybe 4 or 5 secrets. You draw some early, that's fine because you're aggro. Maybe Mysterious Challenger, just a big body, it pulls a couple extra secrets out of your deck, helps you draw into your other stuff, finding those Zephyruses and so on and so forth a little faster. So I think in either direction, this card has, well, both of these cards have a lot of potential. Avenge, kind of talked about already some there, but just a great secret because it's so much of extra stats for 1 mana, and hard to play around sometimes. And with cards like Risa, it's going to be even better. Moving on to Hunter, we have Lock and Load. A card that never really saw anything beyond meme status that I can remember in Hearthstone. Like, it's super fun to play, but not highly competitive. I don't think that's going to change here either. Like, yes, theoretically, with something like Djinn, you could generate a lot of spells, and like, oh yay, get extra spells on Djinn. Because, you know, maybe you generate 4 or 5 spells off Lock and Load, you get those 4 and 5 spells back in Djinn. The Lock and Load itself won't do much for Djinn, but just having extra stuff in the pool could be good, also could be bad, right? Sometimes you don't want anything extra because you know you want to summon your 5/5s and your animal companions. You don't want like a swarm of locusts in the pool, so this could backfire. Plus, hunter spells randomly just aren't that good. They're very specific in what they all do, and finding the right one at the right time is just so unlikely to achieve that I don't think this will get there. Now, Call of the Wild, a card that was once super dominant, but that's because it was 8 mana. When it moved to 9 mana, it wasn't as much of a problem. Still saw, I think, some play in some like Spell Hunter builds, but the game standard's a little slower right now, and we see Hunter play very successfully to turn 10 all the time to get to those Djinn turns. So Call of the Wild, I think, could be played just fine. If you can get to turn 10 anyway, this is often a very strong and reliable and predictable play on turn 9, and then like Djinn, of course, it's great. You get 3 awesome animal companions. So it also even allows you to shape your deck a little differently. So in a Highlander Hunter deck, I think this could absolutely get there. Now you can't have too many high cost cards, but shifting things around just a little bit probably still works just fine. So I have some faith in Call of the Wild. I don't think it's going to be like amazing. I think it's just going to be good. Moving over to Shaman, we have Evolve here, classic staple in Hearthstone. It's pretty good with the new card Desert Hare, by the way. No Doppelgangster anymore. Desert Hare actually is pretty good in Wild right now with Evolve. We've had a lot of success with that one recently ourselves. That said, I don't know that Shaman's going to move far enough away from Battlecry stuff to want to work with Evolve right now. They still do run some cards, of course, that synergize with Witchy Lackeys that could be possible. Things like Former Champ, probably not too bad with Evolve. You get, you know, a couple 6-drops instead of a 1/1 and a 5/5. But you got to run a deck slot. You lose the slot in your deck for that. 6-drops could be worse than 5/5s in some cases, so there's not even always a guaranteed high roll on that. And I think it's more important that this like exists in the pools for ethereal lackeys, but I don't think this is actually going to make the cut in the deck lists of Shaman right now itself. And I don't think it's enough to start a new Shaman archetype either. It's just not that strong. That said, Thing from Below, actually, I think this is a similar story right now. Shamans are actually utilizing totems less than ever. Before they had cards that would summon totems. and they would hit the button more. As it stands right now, Shaman's spending most of their mana doing other things. If they're toteming, they're feeling pretty bad. They're not even playing cards like Flame Tongue or Mana Tide Totem. Only right now, Evil Totem is getting played. There's only 2 of those. And if you're hitting the button like 3 or 4 more times to get this thing really cheap, it's really not a good sign. So I guess I'm not seeing the path right now for Thing for Below. It was obviously an amazing card in its era. But I don't know if Shaman finds a way to work with this at the moment. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, please. I want to hear what I'm missing. Might be missing something. Next up, we have Rogue, who's getting Shaku the Collector. Interesting little card again. He got played some, not a ton, but a little bit, and a semi-reliable way to add at least 1 random card to your hand. I think the challenge for Shaku and Rogue right now is it's kind of slow. The rest of these are adding cards pretty quickly. You know, they've got things that are dumping into the hand immediately. So if you need to use that Vendetta right away, you can. Shaku is like more of an investment for the future, and I'm worried he just won't make the cut because they might have enough ways to do that anyway, and Shaku's not like a great minion on his own beyond that. So I have some questions. Now that said, Swashbuckler's the opposite. Swashbuckler does add the card to your hand immediately, and it's a great 1-drop, so super duper flexible, great for combo cards, easy to slot into a turn. For those reasons, I think Swashbuckler will be great for Rogue. Just an awesome card to add into all kinds of Rogue builds. So even though they both do the same kind of stuff, I think Swashbuckler will be significantly more impactful. Moving on to Priest, we have Light Bomb. Excellent removal card. Just really, really good way to clear lots of big, scary stuff. If we think about Hearthstone these days, I think a lot of important stuff still dies to Light Bomb. Trying to think of all the different kinds of minions out there and the way their stat alignments work. Certainly, there are some decks and some styles of minions that don't go very well with Light Bomb. But on average, minions do have about the same health as their attack. So on average, it's probably going to clear quite successfully. The one cool thing about Priest is they often have minions with much higher health. So they can run a Light Bomb without maybe killing their own boards, which could be pretty sweet. Now, I don't think a combo Priest can run this because it's too expensive, but even controlled Priests can do that too with like big high health taunt minions and stuff. So it seems like a good feasible removal card. I'd have to think through all the different minions in Hearthstone right now to see how often it's going to hit, but it's been a proven source of removal in the past, so I think that'll remain true. And next up we have Djinn. Pretty cool little minion. I think Djinn's a very fun minion, and he did see some competitive play. You could do some cool stuff, just, you know, Djinn something and then Holy Smite it or Holy Nova it. Like, that's cool. I don't know if it fits Priest's game plan today with Combo Priest. They do have a lot of health shenanigans, but not necessarily wanting to like trade something to low health that's on board. That's not something we traditionally have seen in the past. So this has been used more aggressively, or I guess against your opponents and proactively with your own stuff. I think that'll stay true. So will this pop into a deck? Maybe. Will it be very influential in the meta? I don't think so. Moving on to Warlock here, we got Imp Gang Boss. Really one of the best Zoo-style minions ever for Warlock. Super good early game. It can generate a ton of stats if your opponents cannot resolve it easily, which is often very, very hard to do. Particularly in a world where everything's like lackeys right now, like 1/1s. It's going to be hard to kill this 2/4 for a lot of decks efficiently. Even like Kobold lackeys with like double Battle Cry. They got to ping it twice, right? And it's going to summon them a couple 1/1s. So I think this could go into a Zoo build. Now, the challenge is it's got to beat like Neferset Thrasher, which is not easy to do. Like Neferset into Disease Vulture is how Zoo plays right now. If Imp Gang Boss can go in alongside that, it's good. If it can't, I don't know if it's actually going to supplant that style of play. And I don't know if there's another home for it either. It's mostly a Zoo style card. So, great card. Whether or not it's playable, perhaps the jury still out. Renounced Darkness, terrible card, but super fun. This will not be in competitive decks, I don't think. You can't envision any way where that's going to make sense, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to meme with it. I just don't think it'll be good. Moving on to class here. Varian Wrynn up first. This was a card that saw limited play in some tempo decks, and I think it could remain that way today. We've seen Octosari popping into things like Highlander Warrior, as a late game way to move through your deck, keep the engine running. Varian fits that mold perfectly and even better than Octosari because he serves both card draw, filtering down your deck, but also tempo, board presence, pressure. So even though he's a little bit more from a mana standpoint, I think he'd be the perfect top end card for a lot of those Highlander style warrior decks. So you go for one last big board, or you just draw into some stuff. Whatever it is, Varian fits that really nicely. There might be some other decks that could utilize this too. And then finally, Bloodhoof Brave. Pretty cool little taunt minion that's awesome play in like tempo decks, even some control decks. And I could certainly see this tossed into a Highlander deck as well. It's both defensive and aggressive in some ways. It's got some taunt synergy, so maybe a taunt deck could utilize this, like an aggro taunt warrior, like we've played a lot of. A lot of different ways to use this one. So another card that probably not going to like rock anybody's world. I think it's going to reshape the meta, but certainly has some playability. So that said, that's all 23 cards. I will probably talk more about these in the near future. Not only will we be playing them, of course, but I might make a few videos like guessing which ones are going to be the most impactful, the best, etc. So stay tuned for that. That said, thanks for tolerating this video. I know it's super late. Again, I promise I couldn't help it. As you can see, I'm places doing stuff that's very cool that I can't tell you about, but we'll talk about it after BlizzCon. And appreciate the patience, the tolerance, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, game on.